tonight, we're monitoring the eastern Pacific for tropical cyclone formation, and the remnants of Alex, or at least what's left of it, are impacting the UK and Ireland this evening. And now the latest around the wide world of tropics. Tropical Weather Bulletin for June 11th. Well, across the entire world tonight, it is very, very quiet. The remnants of Alex, what's left of it at least, is impacting the UK and Ireland. And we do have an area of interest, as mentioned in the headlines, in the East Pacific, but we'll get into that when we go through the basins. So far, we've had 28 storms form, and that is likely to change. Maybe go to 29 within the next few days. In the Atlantic Basin on day 11 of hurricane season, after Alex, it is very quiet here. The Climate Prediction Center was noting that we could look at some formation next week. They were noting a moderate area of potential formation, but they released a new outlook today that completely removed that area due to uncertainty, which increased as the GFS is on board, but the Euro is not, so confidence has dropped on that. On day 28 of Pacific hurricane season, there's a broad area of low pressure there off the coast of Mexico. National Hurricane Center are giving that an 80% chance of forming, and that could pose a threat to maybe the central Mexico coastline, far up the coastline from where Agatha hit, which is definitely good news there. In the Western Pacific and North Indian Ocean, I don't need to say too much about these basins. They're quiet as they have been, and they are going to likely stay quiet for the foreseeable future, as the models are not picking up on anything. I mean, I know the GFS sometimes depicts a strong typhoon on one run in the Western Pacific, but those are so far out, and then the next run they're all gone. Looking towards the satellite imagery this evening across the Atlantic Basin, you can see overall it is fairly quiet here. Got some thunderstorms in the southern Caribbean that won't amount to any tropical cyclone formation at all. Some tropical waves moving through the main development region, but those are in a hostile environment of dry air and wind shear. So it's fairly quiet in the Atlantic, which is definitely more normal this time of year. In the Eastern Pacific, we are looking towards Mexico. You can see that broad spin and some of that thunderstorm activity associated with that area of low pressure that the National Hurricane Center is watching. We'll get a closer look on that after we go through the rest of the basins. Here is the Western Pacific. We are looking fairly quiet here. Just some general thunderstorm activity there out in the open Pacific Ocean, and even getting to the Philippines. The central Philippines have a little blob of thunderstorms there, just bringing some heavy rain there, but nothing really too significant, nothing really signifying any tropical cyclone formation. As I said, the models very quiet for both the North Indian Ocean and Western Pacific. North Indian Ocean is very quiet here. You can just see that bundle of thunderstorms there. I don't know why this loop is a bit slower this time around, but you get the point. It's just some blobs of thunderstorms there with the monsoonal activity. In the Eastern Pacific, here we are back to our area of interest. You can see that broad area of low pressure there with that minimal thunderstorm activity. It's very light, if that makes sense. It's not deep convection, I guess is a better term to use there. But this is expected to get a bit tighter and have more deep convection, which of course would make it a tropical cyclone. That's likely to happen over the next few days. For our last satellite floater tonight, we can look at a severe cluster moving through the southern U.S. as this has brought some pretty strong wind gusts to portions of Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama, even into the Florida Peninsula. This is the latest Climate Prediction Center outlook. You can see those areas marked over the next 2 weeks in the Eastern Pacific. High this week, moderate next week in that region in the Atlantic that I mentioned earlier has been removed from the Caribbean and Gulf of Mexico. Looking towards the sea surface temperatures, you can see where our area of interest is towards Mexico. Generally 28 or 29 degrees Celsius. That 30 degree isotherm has really been chipped away by factors of like Agatha and the La Nina in place. In the Atlantic Basin, we are warming up, and you can see that loop current in the Gulf of Mexico. It's a bit difficult to figure out on this map, but it is certainly visible there. It's much more visible on the oceanic heat content map that we'll look at right after this. In the North Indian Ocean and even into the Southwest Indian Ocean, we are still fairly warm here, ready for tropical cyclone formation if the atmospheric conditions allow it. Same case across the entire Western Pacific Basin. That 30-degree isotherm has really been expanding east of the Philippines. It's just very concerning, at least, that we're not seeing this activity early in the season to help keep those sea surface temperatures down. That means that those waters warm up, they get deeper, and we may have issues later in the year where we could have really strong storms form. That's an issue that you have with not seeing a bunch of activity, weak storms that take care of the sea surface temperature issue. The anomalies across the world, we are generally above average in the Atlantic Basin and Western Pacific. Below average is cutting into a lot of the Eastern Pacific, though. That's something I've noticed. The loop current there, you can see that very clear in the Gulf of Mexico. That is something you really need to pay attention to when you get into months like August and September and October, the peak season months. That was responsible for allowing Hurricane Ida last year to rapidly intensify to a high-end Category 4. It went over the loop current and was able to rapidly intensify there. The East Pacific on oceanic heat content has really been just going down over the past few weeks, but the West Pacific, it is good. Let's hope that we don't get any storms that take advantage of that, but inevitably it will happen at some point, so we do need to be prepared for when that does happen. Looking to on this day, we're going back to 2004, the year I was born actually. On June 11th, 2004, tropical storms Kansen and Chanthu were active. Kansen was impacting Japan as it was weakening from typhoon status, and Chanthu was coming off of the Philippines and would strengthen a little bit before impacting Vietnam as a tropical storm. And that imagery there was a couple days before the 11th. That's of Kansen right there. And that was when it was east of Taiwan, north of Luzon. Getting to the naming list tonight, in the Atlantic Basin, we are looking for Bonnie. That might be a bit further away than originally thought. In the East Pacific, we're looking out for Blas, and that is probably going to be coming in the next few days. In the Central Pacific, we're still waiting on Hone, no surprises there, but hey, we're also waiting on Iona. In the West Pacific, on list 4, the next name here is Shaba in the North Indian Ocean. We're looking out for Satrang, and it'll be very interesting to see over the next few weeks getting into July, see if we can actually get one of these names off the list. It's been, again, since April, since we've seen anything in the West Pacific, and May in the North Indian Ocean. In the Australian region, we're looking out for Darien. In the Southwest Indian Ocean, we're looking out for Latlama. And in the South Pacific, we're looking out for Hale.